In a continuing effort to back new or expanding employers, Clark County Community Development is offering another option to speed up site plan reviews for non-residential building projects. Recently, we met with Marty Snell, Director of Clark County Community Development, and Dave Brown with Columbia Commercial Properties to learn how this and other incentives are helping to spur job creation locally.
Hello, I'm Jim Demo with Clark County Close-Up. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dave, why don't you first tell us a little bit about your company?
Okay. Columbia Commercial Properties, primarily a brokerage company, industrial brokerage company. We represent landlords as well as tenants in the Vancouver marketplace, and helping them locate within the various business parks, as well as with the business parks, representing them to go out and attract tenants to locate within the parks.
So you're definitely aware of economic development and the impacts that'll happen with new businesses coming in.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Marty, let's first talk kind of about the role for the general viewer, the role of the permitting process for either building construction or expansion.
Well, the county has really a couple different types of review. One is in development review. So if you're a property owner that has no improvements on the ground, you have no building, you submit for what's called site plan review. We review the property and then the project for making sure that the site is going to be completed compliant to the county's code. Once you have your site done and you come in for building, for whether it's a shell building or fully improved buildings, we go through building plan review and inspection. So there are two kind of primary components, the development review side and then the building and construction side.
Okay. Now, why are these reviews important?
Well, on the development side, we review property to be developed to the county's code so that you have sewer and water and stormwater, parking, landscaping, lighting, all of those things that are land use oriented. And there's a bit more of a process involved with development review than there is building. Once the building, or excuse me, once the property is improved and you have a building to build, then we ask that you submit. We require that you submit building plans for review compliant to the Uniform Building Code or International Building Code, Fire Code, Plumbing Code, Mechanical Code. So we look at code compliant issues on the building side. Once we've approved the building plans, then we go out and do a series of inspections to make sure that the building is safe, that it's going to withstand the test of time through checking off these codes.
And a lot of these codes, are they come also from state and federal government as well? Then you're...
Yes, we have to follow the state building code, and within that there are fire codes, plumbing, mechanical. So it's a public safety issue, fire, life safety, property safety. So that's what we do for the building and construction side.
Okay. And in general, how does the permit process paid for?
The permits are typically paid by the applicant, the property owner, or the business owner. So they'll submit the plans, pay a plan review fee, and then once the plans have been reviewed and approved, they pay for the permit itself. And those are, again, paid by the applicant. Okay.
Now, there's, as I understand, some fees are being waived this year.
That's true.
Could you talk about this program?
The Board of County Commissioners last fall adopted a resolution that expires at the end of this year, so time is of the essence, where certain projects would be eligible for a fee waiver. So there are kind of a couple components to the fee waiver program. One is on commercially zoned property. If you have a commercial space, an existing building, and you want to do a tenant improvement, then the tenant improvement and building permit fee would be waived for that application. You have to be in certain areas of the county, geographic areas of the county where we've made some focused public investment. That's the one component. The other component is for new development. So if you're a property owner with bare ground and you're zoned light industrial or business park or office campus, and you want to make your development review, if you want to apply for your development review and building permit, we would allow the site plan fees, the site plan review fees, to be waived. There are conditions for that, and that is if you get your development approval by June 30 of 2012, we would want your first required building inspection to happen. That is insurance that you don't just get your development approval and sit on it, that you actually put people to work and build something. So again, this resolution is It's short-lived. It expires at the end of the year, and anybody who has property interested should kind of take a look at that.
Dave, what kind of difference could this make with businesses interested in coming in?
Well, I can speak to that. There's already been some positive impact from the program that Marty talked about in terms of the tenant improvement fees that have been waived. I can cite a couple of different projects that have had tenants come into the properties where the developer, as Marty mentioned, would typically, they do pay for those costs of a tenant improvement and move-in permit. And because the program that Marty talked about has been waived, it allows two things to happen. Number one, it allows the tenant to know that with certainty that these the fees are going to be essentially taken care of by, in this case, by the county being waived. Second thing, what it allows it to do is a developer who has put the project up allows them to be more competitive with not only other property owners in the area, but I guess most importantly with other jurisdictions. And in this market, about half of the prospects and tenants come from across the river or outside of the area, and the other half are basically tenants that are moving from within the area. So that really is a big issue. It allows us to be more competitive as an area specifically. So I think it makes a big difference.
Marty, how much money are we kind of talking around generally?
Well, commercial tenant improvements can range from, you know, a few $1,000s, a couple $2,000, $3,000, upwards of tens of thousands of dollars. We do have some industrial tenant improvements that, because of the valuation of the project, we've looked at waiving, you know, fees in the $10,000, $12,000 range. And that's one example is Enlight Photonics on 88th Street. They're doing some work to create more kind of fabrication space out of what otherwise was warehouse space. So their fees are in the $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 range. When it comes to development review, again, taking bare ground and getting a project up and running, site plan runs tens of thousands of dollars, maybe $20,000, $30,000. And again, there are some qualifiers to those projects that are eligible. But yeah, we're several thousand to tens of thousands of dollars.
Now, can you tell us, you're also doing some work to try to get projects started and finished quicker. Can you tell us about that program?
Yes, several programs in the county. The one you're talking about is a 60-day development review. So if you're a certain type of project where you're not going to a public hearing and a hearings examiner, staff is making the decision, staff is applying the code requirements. We're piloting certain projects where you can do planning review and engineering review at the same time. So the time that you submit your application and it's complete and there are no real hiccups, we can get a decision within 60 days. We have a couple projects right now that are under this pilot program. Prairie High School is expanding some ball fields. So they're in the 60-day review pilot program, and this Enlight Photonics, which is doing some parking area expansion as well as their building, they're looking at this 60-day development review.
Now, Dave, they just say time is money. What kind of impacts does this have with local business development?
Well, I think two things. One is that the fact that the fees regarding those projects that are either on the board or want to go through this process of the fee waiver allows the business owner or the developer to essentially, again, be more competitive regarding other sites vis-a-vis other areas. In terms of time being money, is the fact that business owners really want to have certainty with regard to if they're taking on a project to build a building or to do these tenant improvements or parking lot, like Marty mentioned. They just want to focus on what they do, and they are not in the business to develop property. And so what they're really looking for is timing and certainty, and that does, you know, equate to money, because if they don't have those two elements, they're not going to invest the money, or they're going to defer making that decision until they do have those two things under control, because they're just not, or understood, I should say, because they're not in that particular business to make those decisions. It's what developers do, and the city and county can help them through that process with what programs they have outlined.
Thank you. What kind of response in general have you received from these incentive programs?
Well, on the fee waiver, we have several projects that have come in the door since last fall, and we do a monthly report to the Board of County Commissioners. They like to see what fees have been waived, how many projects. To date, actually, as of early July, we do the first Wednesday of the month. We've waived about $240,000 in fees in several projects, from very small commercial tenant improvements to larger industrial tenant improvements, and also a few of these site plan review projects that are, again, starting from bare ground, and they're going to go through the development review process. There are a good dozen or more projects that have come in, and again, we track these monthly and report to the board and other interested parties. So we've seen some good response to date.
Any estimates on job creation?
Well, there's certainly temporary construction jobs that'll occur during the tenant improvement work. When you're going through development review, you're hiring consultants, engineers, planners, landscape designers, those kinds of folks that have some, could be weeks, could be months of work getting through the development review process. Time will only tell how many full-time employment come out of the development review projects, but I would defer to Dave in terms of tenants that are coming in and how many employees that there may be.
Dave, have you any?
Yeah, and in terms of the projects that I've been aware of how they've taken advantage of this fee waiver, I would say that their business parks have been able to essentially occupy the spaces that have been otherwise vacant. And again, what's happened is that because of the fee waiver, the developers are being able to be more competitive with the fact that they're putting a deal structure together and making those tenants that may otherwise either wait or go to another area essentially make the commitment to go in to the park. So it's hard for me to specify how many deals have really pointed to that as the sole contributor, but I can tell you that has definitely helped what I see on a day-to-day basis of providing incentives to the tenants to say, look, we're doing the best we can to make this deal structure work for you. And the fact that they're actually making those decisions is direct employment. And as Marty mentioned also too, is that oftentimes the tenants that go in there aren't going to accept the space as is. They're going to be improvements to be made, and that brings jobs in terms of construction and planning and all of those required services.
Okay, two-part question. Any other plans for any kind of other improvements to help business expansion? And then how do you work with businesses to kind of get feedback on planning efforts?
Well, we do as much outreach as we can. We work with a county-appointed board called the Development and Engineering Advisory Board. They interface with the private sector. These are consultants who work with the private sector. So when we have an idea, as an example, the 60-day development review, we bounce those ideas off of the Development and Engineering Advisory Board. And they're in direct contact with the private sector. Another program that the county has, they've renewed at least twice projects that have a 5-year deadline, subdivisions and commercial projects. The state law changed where the allowance for time is 7 years. So the county commissioners have adopted extensions to projects that would have expired in 5 years. We're giving them a full 7 years. So we do our best in terms of our PIO outreach to notify folks that there are these programs available, and certainly interviews like this help.
Okay. Now, if people want more one other thing, trends. What trends do you see in development and commercial property?
Well, what we're seeing is most of the new construction is coming from owner users, and that is obviously a company that wants to build their own building. The speculative development market is essentially non-existent. However, I will say that there have been more developers who have looked at acquiring land and building projects from a ground-up basis, but it's just kind of now looking back at the parcels that they may have had interest in previously. So I would say specifically right now, the deals that are being constructed are going to be owner-user driven, and the financing is available for them, and that's really people are going to be able to focus for that.
We've seen through the fee waiver program, we've seen smaller commercial tenant improvements, we've seen office and kind of warehouse and flex space. We have seen a couple really good industrial improvements. Enlight Photonics is one that I mentioned, and then there's one nearby on 88th Street called Sunlight Supply. They're kind of consolidating some operations on their site, and so instead of having multiple locations either in this county or elsewhere, that they can consolidate in one area. So I mean that's a trend we're seeing too, is some consolidations of industrial users and industrial tenants.
Okay. Now, if people want more information on the permitting process, or if there's an owner who's just ready to go, where can they call?
They can call my department, Clark County Community Development. It's area code 360-397-2375. They can also visit the county's website, which is www.clark.wa.gov. Go to departments or links and get to community development.
Well, thank you both for coming, and best of luck to you for bringing more jobs to this community.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.